Okay, this video is to demonstrate how to make a spout for a teapot. So I've had some questions from people about how much clay to use. And I actually like to overestimate when I'm making the spout. This is, I think, 1.5 pounds. And I like to have a lot of extra on the bottom. Like some people might think, oh, you're just gonna open up all the way to the bottom. But if you have a totally opened up tube that does not have any base on it, it's very vulnerable to getting warped and having it collapse. And so in fact, you're gonna take it off the wheel with a fairly thick bottom on it because that will give it stability so that you don't have issues with it warping or collapsing on you. So I would say 1.5. You can always, it's kind of like throwing off the hump. You could always cut it off with some left on the bottom. And, and that's, not a big deal. But you don't actually, contrary to what you might think, you don't actually want to open up all the way to the bottom. Okay, so I am going to keep a fairly narrow base for mine. And I don't actually want to spread it out too much. I want to keep it pretty narrow. And in fact, I think I'm probably going to open up with just like one finger. Also, I'm doing the throwing off the hump technique. So if the bottom's not fully centered, it's not the end of the world. This top part is centered, and that's what I need. So I'm gonna take my pointer finger here, and I'm just gonna go down. I'm still not going straight down. That's another thing that people, I think, oh, I'm trying to make this tube, so I should just go straight down. But when you go straight down, it's more likely to get that, wiggling, offset positioning. So you really want to continue to do that 45-degree angle technique. But you do want to not let it get too wide. You don't want the V to get too wide. So I'm trying to keep it narrow, but I'm still not going straight down. I'm kind of pushing towards the center, maybe not at a 45, but close to it. And then I'm using this hand to kind of push in and keep it from getting too wide. So depending on how big or tall of one you want, would determine how deep you want to go down. So I've left probably, I don't know, a solid inch at the bottom still. So I've gone in, and then now I want with my finger, because I'm kind of opening up with one finger, I want to go, I went down like this, and now I'm going to curl back, and I want to flatten the bottom and then straighten. Because I'm eventually going to chop it off, and I do want the wall of the bottom of this to be 90 degrees. I don't want it to be curved like a bowl. So I'm gonna come back towards my hand, and then I'm gonna straighten my finger. So I just went like this and then like this. And however wide this bottom is where I opened up, that's gonna be the base of the opening of your spout. So you wanna kind of look at it, and depending on how big of the body of the teapot, you want this to sort of be in proportion. So one of the considerations that you want to think about is just making your spout proportionate to the size of your teapot. So if you have a really small teapot, don't make a ginormous spout, or vice versa. Okay, so I've got an opening here that feels about right. And again, I'm kind of doing this throwing off the hump technique. So when I cut in, I'm not cutting in at the bottom, I'm cutting in right about here, because this is the bottom of my pot. And remember too, you don't want this to come, if you cut in too high, you're gonna end up pulling the whole thing off. Okay, so I'm cutting in right here. And for this technique, you definitely want your thumb on the outside because you want to keep it nice and narrow. So the thumb is helping to pull this in. And what I'm thinking of when I'm doing this is even walls and straight up, because I want to get this as high as I can, and if it gets off-centered, for this technique, because you're going so high and so far away from the wheel head, if it's at all off, it's gonna be a nightmare. So keeping it, this is why this is, you know, an advanced end of your project, is because this part is so difficult. I'm gonna kind of be collaring it in as I go. But depending on how high it is, I'm gonna get to a point where I can't put my fingers in there anymore because my fingers aren't long enough. I'm already almost to that point. So I need to make sure that my bottom is not too thick, because I'm gonna get to a point where I can't mess with the bottom anymore. I can only do my pulling at the top. So I'm really focusing on trying to get even walls. And before I get too tall, I want to go in and feel and double check, like, yeah, okay, that's, you know, thin enough, because I'm getting to the point of no return here where there's no getting back to that bottom part. So, but as you can see, it's gotten really wide, but I'm gonna collar. And I'm mostly concerned right now with keeping it in center and making sure the walls are even. And this is actually going a little bit fast. I'd probably slow it down a tad at this point. So probably more like, it's even a little fast, medium slow here. Okay, so now a lot of this, I'm not gonna be able to get to the bottom anymore at all. And so I'm gonna start collaring in. So you can do it where you're tucking your middle fingers in. You could try just using your fingertips. But when you're collaring, you're pushing in and up at the same time, and that is gonna narrow it and it's gonna heighten it. So at this point, I don't want this to be too wide when I start to go upwards. So I'm gonna collar the top in first, and then I'm gonna go back down to the bottom. And I'm gonna start to collar in. So it's almost like a pull of sorts, in the fact that I'm actually forcing the clay to move up. And you need lots of water for this. So almost think of it like a pull in some ways. And then, yeah, this is where it can get very wild very easily because it's so far away from the wheel head. So you got to make sure your elbows are really well tucked in. So I'm going to get to the point of no return here where I can't go any deeper than about here. So I'm gonna work on thinning this out. Just one finger on the inside, and then some fingers on the outside. Because when you're collaring from the outside, it will cause the clay to get a little bit, have some uneven thickness to it. So I can just kind of even out the top. And in fact, I've got a little bump there. I'm gonna go one more time. Whoop, right there, yep. Farther away from the wheel head, the more dicey this gets too. So you gotta really be patient, go slow. Okay, so now I feel like I've got some more even thickness. I'm gonna make sure this is nice and wet, and then I'm going to start at the bottom again, go narrow, work my way up. Woo! It's getting crazy here, people. So you want to imagine that you are forcing the clay to do your bidding. Like you are the boss. So you have to hold your fingers super solidly still. One of the things that's tricky about this technique too is that the clay is going into your fingers on your left hand side, and that can really cause you trouble. So you got to watch out for like digging your fingers on the left hand side in too much. And then from here, I'm really sort of at the point of no return completely. There's no putting my fingers in there. All I'm gonna do is shape and heighten. And probably what you're gonna find is a lot of unevenness is gonna happen up at the top. That's really common and normal. A lot of times when I'm making spouts, I'll have to cut it off multiple times throughout the process. Oh, crikeys, no needle tool. That's really annoying. Okay, make sure you have a needle tool. And I'll probably have to do this a couple times. Remember that you want one finger in and your thumb out, and make sure that the tool is right on your thumb, like really nice and steady, so you're not just like going for it and hoping for the best. All right, so this process, you know, is slow and you have to really concentrate. So this is not, it's actually even hard for me to like talk while I'm doing it. It's not the time to have a conversation with your neighbor. Slow, steady, the wheel is slow, my hands are moving slow. And I'm making this pretty tall because I know I'm making a tall teapot, but you could definitely get away with a spout that's maybe only this tall. So, you know, it does not have to be this tall. Okay, so you're going to get this off the wheel the same way that you did when I taught you how to get the, to either throwing off the hum technique, or if you want to, if you don't want to mess with trying to cut it off with a needle tool, you could just leave a thick bottom and just slice it off. And the only thing about that technique is that the bottom is going to stay wet for a really long time because it's so thick, and then the top is going to dry out really fast. So you just have to pay attention to the difference, the thinness and the thickness. And probably what you'll have to do is you'll have to just cover the top with plastic and then let the bottom kind of dry out to leather hard before you try to slice it and attach it. So just, it's a little bit tricky with drying out technique to make sure that it dries out evenly. Okay, that is your teapot spout demo.